All right. Gene Burnett from GeneBurnett.com. Hey, this is another practice tip video. And this is one that's so simple that it's easy to overlook and not actually do. And it's so basically simple. It's just this simple. Drill what you dread, right? Now, I'm not talking about what you dread in life. I'm talking about what you dread that's part of your practice, part of your learning process. So if you're learning Tai Chi, or if you're learning calligraphy, if you're learning music, learning how to play the drums, learning how to play the guitar, learning how to do Tai Chi, learning how to do a form, you'll know and you'll notice that there are certain movements that when you get to them, you're apprehensive. You think, oh, here comes this thing. Will I be able to do it, or will I be able to do it well? Or you have a little feeling of tightness around it, like, oh, here comes that note. Here comes that note that's hard to sing, right? So it's really simple. Just drill that thing until you don't dread it anymore. It's that simple. Drill it till it's no big deal, till it just feels like another movement in the form. And the funny thing is like you can drill the things that you really give you trouble and kind of put them, into the I got this file, and then stop doing this. And the reason for that is you've drilled the things that you dread at a certain level. But I think it's good to go to the next level and ask yourself, what's the least comfortable, if not dread, but what's the least comfortable movement in the form now? Or what's the weakest line in the song now? What's the hardest note to sing in the song now? What's the hardest letter to write, or the hardest beat to hit now? And then drill that until that's no longer a big deal. And then say, okay, now what's the hardest one? And, I'm not saying you should just do this constantly. I don't do it constantly. But periodically I will find, anytime I discover that there's a movement that just I don't feel as confident in as the other movements, I will drill that. I will drill it. I will do it over and over and over. A simple way for me to do that is, like when I come up to a movement in the form that I'm drilling or working on, I just repeat it. So for instance, I'll give you an example of one of the things I'm drilling. There's a movement in our particular long form, Yang style long form, where we come to a punch and we turn and look back the direction we started. We come around with a ward-off hand here. This lifts, this elbow, wrist comes right under the other one. It's right over my ankle as well. Bring this up like this, turn it sideways, and fire this kick like that. That was a bad one. See? It's not my greatest kick. I got congenital low back problem that's been a little tender and a little bit, an issue all my life to some degree. So when I go to do a higher kick or a movement that requires some stress in that area, it's always a little bit harder for me. But also I'm getting older. I'm going to turn 65 this summer. So my body is a work in progress, and I keep having to sometimes I have to deal with brand new issues that I never had to deal with before. And sometimes it's a recurrence of an old issue, and sometimes it's just something I've been working on since day one. So what I'll do when I get to the punch, so here's the punch, I get to this place and I do the high kick. And I'm looking for a certain sound when I do that, a certain coordination of hand and foot that shows me that I've just relaxed and I've coordinated my body to make it happen right there. This is not a kick I would ever do in real life. It's not even close to go-to for me. I would have to do thousands and thousands and thousands to make this thing go-to. I'd much prefer that for a go-to. Doesn't seem like much, but it's not nothing. So anyway, so when I get to that place, I'm looking for that sound. And I hadn't been getting it very much lately. So I do that kick, that was almost. And then in the form, we go back to this corner and come back. And then we go forward and turn and do the other leg. So there's a little cloud handsy transition right there. And then there's the movement here. That was better. Now, the form would go on. I'd come here to this place here and I'd go on to another move. But since it's a dread move, I'm going to drill it a little bit. So I'm just going to be quiet and play with this for a second. we go. Not bad. Got to make some adjustments for the furniture in here. So I start thinking, what can I do, change things? For instance, sometimes I might focus on my elbows being down a little more firmly, a little more solidly than just relax down, but like hold them down a little bit, or I'll engage my core. It's like, nah, that wasn't quite it. So I'll come back again. I'll think, how about long spine right here? That's better. So maybe that's the key today. And I'm just informing my nervous system by trying different things in different times, just different configurations, because there's a lot, there's just a quick little moment, and there's a lot that goes into that moment. So I just do it over and over again. And if I came to a movement here and I was a little off balance, I might relax and do that movement 5 times instead of once. Feel that over and over again, and make little adjustments to my posture. Try to, make that comfortable so that when I'm done with that kick, I could hang out here, and then I could do that. I want to rise a little bit when I do that. Oop, lost my balance, so do it again. Nope, lost it again. There. So, drill what you dread until it's no longer a big deal. I was afraid of public speaking at one point, not terrified of it, but just wary of it. I was a young guy. I didn't have a lot of experience with it, and I was involved in an organization where one of the things you could volunteer for was being a bit of an emissary and doing some public speaking, and I had made up my mind at the time that I was just going to do anything I wanted that I was afraid of, I was going to go for. So I said, okay. So I learned how to give the talk, and I learned how to talk in front of people. And it came fairly easily to me, actually. One of the few things in my life that has. But, it was, again, I was afraid of it, so I went and did it until it was no big deal. The first time I ever performed at an open mic, back in 1975 or 6, when I was just out of high school, I went up to play at the open mic, and my hands were just vibrating, shaking. I didn't actually feel scared, but my hands were just shaking. And I said, oh, this must be stage fright. So I wasn't used to playing in front of people. It's more pressure, And so I said, this won't do. And so I went back to that open mic every single Sunday for a couple of years. And by the end of the first year, being on stage and being in the audience, it felt pretty much the same. And it's felt that way ever since. I get excited and, energized if I'm playing some unusually big gig, which doesn't happen much anymore, but when I opened for America in front of 19,000 people, 1,900 people or something over in nearby Jacksonville, I was certainly excited, but still, it wasn't shaky or nervous or anything. It felt like just being me in the audience versus being me on stage. It was more fun to be on stage, but that was about it. And I trace all that back to just breaking that down when I was a kid, to just getting accustomed to the thing. I drilled what I dreaded until it felt normal, and sometimes those things even end up being things that I really, really like. So it just, it can take a little while to do, but at the very least you'll dread it less. So one of my Tai Chi YouTube friends, Carlos, says his version of drill what you dread is in yoga or Tai Chi. he practices one movement that he really likes and one that he doesn't until he can't tell the difference. So, which is the same basic principle as this. So yeah, right on, do that. It's a great way to progress through your art, whatever your art is. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you'd like to leave me a donation, I have a tip jar down below. a tip jar down below. And but I also just love to hear comments, especially if this stuff is useful. I'm not really doing this for money, although donations help me do what I do, but I mainly make these videos in the hopes that they might be useful to somebody. These are all things that are useful to me, and I hope they're useful to you. So thanks for watching, appreciate it, and we'll see you down the road.